finally see you all, especially those of you who have joined the new and improved society of the Unbroken Spine. I know that I have chosen well. I apologize for any concern caused by my recent disappearing act. I really forgot to charge my phone. So I shall explain it all now. As you may well know, my beloved bookstore is no more. Following our adventure, Clay and I are now devoted to that glorious space where books and technology meet and make each other better. But even in a world where a person can effortlessly carry 1,000 books within a thin sheet of plastic, we still need bookstores, more than ever in fact. Bookstores are a community hub. Bookstores are living monuments to literature. They provide the essential link between the author and the reader. And we would all agree that both are essential to the existence of books, in whatever form books may take these days. But surviving in a changing world requires change, and the shape of that change remains a fascinating question. In search of answers, I first set about assembling a new society of the Unbroken Spine, with the intention of finding those who truly love books and are open to adventure. Important qualities in ensuring the future of bookstores. I have encountered so many wonderful people in the process, and I greatly look forward to getting to know you better this evening. After assembling the society, I decided to depart San Francisco and make a pilgrimage to the best bookstores in the world, from Shakespeare and Company in Paris to Bookworm in Beijing, to observe the qualities that help them thrive. Naturally, I had to visit London, the well from which so much great literature has sprung. Discovered that the very bookstore I found the most inspiring was also seeking answers to our question, and in a most proactive and dynamic manner. I believe I can learn a lot from Foyles, so I'll be sticking around to see what they plan for their bookshop of the future. As with all future things, only time will tell. So, let's move on to the true reason we are here today. We are here to welcome the man that has made this all possible, who has inspired me to do more work than seek my own immortality, and instead fight for the immortality of books. Robin Sloan, the author of my story, and one of my I need to go to Google, girl.
Carefully choreographed.
This was
taste of technology.
Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, I think that's big enough. Let's
Hello, Robin. Can you see me?
Hello.
No or yes?
No.
You want me over there?
So is that this?
Yeah. You're gonna say hi.
Oh, great.
Hello, Robin, my creator.
Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you too. How are you doing?
I'm great. The sun is just coming out here in San Francisco, which, as you know, is a rare occurrence.
No fog?
There was plenty this morning.
Right. Now let's jump straight in. What led you to write my story?
Well, I wish it was I could say that it was the fact that I walked into a charming 24-hour bookstore in San Francisco myself, but no such place exists. I have to confess, the inspiration came from closer to the place you're standing than it did the place where I'm sitting. I read a tweet from a friend of mine in the UK, who tweeted, this is years ago, this is 2008, she tweeted, "Just saw a sign for 24-hour book drop, but mistook it for a 24-hour book shop. My disappointment is beyond words." I read that tweet and it made me laugh, and I wrote it down, and then when I was sort of sitting down to start a new short story just a few months later, there it was. I thought, hey, there's got to be something waiting in the 24-hour bookshop.
Fantastic. Now, Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore began life as an e-book. How did it become a novel?
You know, it grew online in the way that some things do. I've spent a lot of time putting a lot of things up on the internet, and you learn pretty quickly that some things just kind of stick and other things don't. And I have to say, of all the things I've written or produced or coded or whatever else over the years, there are only a few that have, for whatever reason, kind of caught on the way Mr. Penumbra, this short story, did. And so I think that was a signal that there was something bigger waiting there, a richer story and a bigger world.
Great. Now, you're a debut author. How has the experience of publishing a novel been for you?
I would say that it has been, above all, mysterious. And what I mean by that, I guess I'll connect it again back to my experience working on the internet. Technical glitches aside, usually the internet is actually very predictable. You sort of know where your traffic's coming from. You understand how things are flowing through the network, especially on Facebook and Twitter and things like that. And writing a novel and having it published in the real world, you don't know how it spreads. You see that it does. I see it in people's hands, and I hear people talking about it, and hear little stories. But how that happens, I think it's it's actually rather delightfully mysterious.
Now, you make use of the novel within a novel device in your novel through the means of the Dragon Song Chronicles. Can you tell us where the inspiration for that book, which my friend Clay is so obsessed, came from?
Yeah, of course. Oh, of course. And I'm sure there's people in the room there who will be right with me on this one. When I was a kid, I read every book with every combination of dragon and Chronicles in the title. Of course, a lot of it is British, right? It's that British sort of fantasy tradition, the Chronicles of Narnia, Tolkien. Another series which doesn't get enough credit, but I think is actually one of the very best, called The Dark is Rising. And secret Susan Cooper fan club. But so all those, I would say that all those, they kind of swirl in your brain and they pool together, and you pull out this kind of fantasy saga. And of course it has a dwarf, and of course it has a fallen prince and everything else.
Now, Google plays such a huge part in the novel, and it's not entirely clear whether its portrayal is positive or negative. What is your opinion of Google and Twitter, for that matter, now that you no longer work there? You can be honest.
It's true. Here's my honest opinion. And of course, these are local places. They're a big part of life here in the Bay Area. I know lots of people who work at both. They're wonderful and they're terrible. They're wonderful because, honestly, I don't think there has been this kind of concentration of talent and creativity and just everything, passion and energy in one place, so well treated ever before. It's really remarkable to visit these campuses and meet the people who are working on these really hard, really interesting problems. So that's good. I actually think it's rather wonderful. It's terrible because they're trapped on these campuses. They live in these sort of hermetically sealed worlds. I'd say during my time at Twitter, it was they were closing the hatches, you know, the food was getting better and better, the benefits were getting fancier and fancier, the office itself was getting bigger and better. And so there are fewer incentives to leave, you know, there are fewer incentives to kind of poke your nose out into the city and ride the bus and walk the streets. And I think that's actually a real shame. I think especially when you're trying to solve real problems or make things for real people, it's easy to get lost in your own little digital kingdom. So I think that's the part that's a little bit terrible.
Like the reading room in the Unbroken Spine.
Yeah! You know, it's funny, I'm glad you said that, because of course, Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore is a book about two cults. One of them I call a cult, you know, the cult of the Unbroken Spine, down beneath the surface of New York City. But the other cult, I don't quite come out and say it, but there's no question, the other cult is Google itself.
Now, technology is obviously becoming such a huge deal in daily life, and notably in the world of publishing. What do you feel literature can do for technology and vice versa?
Well, you know, I have to say, Mr. Penumbra, I think I might take issue with the premise of your question and the word, you know, becoming, the sense that technology is a new force that is, you know, transforming the book industry. I mean, there's no question that there are things that are new and things that are transformative and challenging, like ebooks, etc. But technology has been a part of the book business for a long time. In fact, the book business has been technology from the very beginning. And I tell you, I read a lot about the early history of printing, you know, the early days of this whole industry back in Venice and other places around 1500. And the more I read about it, the more familiar it sounded. It was crazy and chaotic and competitive, and people were stealing each other's techniques and complaining about each other, and, you know, predicting the whole thing was going to collapse like a house of cards. And that sounds a lot like conversations I hear in Silicon Valley today. So I think technology has been part of the story of books since about the very beginning, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
Now, Foyles are currently designing their bookshop, I should say, bookshop of the future. What would your bookshop of the future look like?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Gosh, I should have a good answer for this because I spend a lot of time in bookshops and increasingly, you know, more time doing events and things like that. I actually think it would have something to do with events. I think my ideal bookshop of the future, you know, as you know, many book events do not feature such exalted personages and video chats. In fact, I would still go so far as to say that many book events are rather boring, and I think a bookstore could help sort of support a different kind of event. I think my dream bookstore would have a great event space, an awesome AV setup, comfortable seating, and it would be a place that was as much a theater and an event venue, you know, packed with people every night as a retail establishment.
Besides mine, of course, what is your favorite bookstore?
Favorite bookstore? That's a hard question, of course. There's so many good candidates, but I think I have to go with the hometown favorite, and frankly the one that is the most direct, you know, sort of inspiration, as it were, for yours, and that's City Lights here in San Francisco. It's been around for a long time. It is a beautiful store. They own their own building, and so there's this real sense of investment and security. I think that's the one. It's an institution.
So there's no Corvina then?
they might have a surly clerk or two.
What are you working on at the moment?
It's very germane, and I hope you actually won't be offended that I didn't consult you more closely first. But I am working at this very moment on a short, digital-only prequel to Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. It's about the length of a long short story or a novelette, and it details your arrival in San Francisco in 1969. Why did you come, what happened, and why did you decide to stay? And that'll be released in the US in the fall, and hopefully in the UK sometime thereafter.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Now, Robin, I don't know if any of this lovely audience here would like to ask you a question. Would anyone?
Okay.
Where'd you get the name from, Mr. Penumbra? Did you hear that, Robin?
I didn't hear you repeat it.
It was, where did you get the name from? Well, I know what Penumbra is.
Oh, yeah. You know, honestly, I will answer that with complete candor. So many words and choices in the book are quite deliberate, and they're kind of links and asides to different things. This one just kind of appeared in my head, and I hate the way that sounds. I hate it when people say, I don't know, it was mysterious. I don't know what else to say. I sat down and I thought, yeah, Mr. Penumbra.
Anybody else?
This one here.
One, yeah.
Why
Why
Festina Lente?
Festina Lente?
Oh, I mean, that was part of my burn in reading about those early days of printing, and I came away just amazed, really, and inspired by Aldous Manutius and his printing house in Venice, where they created the first editions, using mechanical printing of all these great classics, from Aristotle to Homer to Virgil, and on and on. And he had a sort of a logo, a seal, and a motto. The seal was this funky-looking dragon wrapped, or not dragon, a dolphin wrapped around an anchor, which is still in use today by different publishers and different institutions. And to my mind, even more interestingly, the motto that they printed on the kind of the front page of all these books was Festina Lente, which of course means make haste, but slowly. And I think it's perfect. It could not be more germane to the time we live in and the kind of choices that we have to make today with regard to books and technology and business and everything else. So I'm all in. Festina Lente.
We have another couple of questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to ask if Kat was your ideal woman as well, or just Clay's?
Was Kat your ideal woman, or just Clay's?
It's not that Kat is my ideal woman, but I do think she's pretty fabulous. I've actually been surprised. Some readers of the book, including my own girlfriend, have confessed to finding her a little bit annoying, and I don't think her annoying at all. I think she's badass. And, I think fiction needs a few more badass, ambitious, capable female engineers. So I'm just happy to have her on the shelf now.
This is a question. Who'd win in a fight, Hemingway or Mark Zuckerberg?
Who are we matching up here?
Hemingway and Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, are you kidding me? It's easy. It depends, because if we're talking about a, cage match, I think it's obvious. But if we're talking about a sort of Jason Bourne-esque game of cat and mouse, two combatants faced off on sort of a, kind of a European playing field, I think Zuckerberg has some serious tools at his disposal. So that would be more interesting story to tell.
Another question from the audience. In the book, it mentions Chatterbees. You know what you're getting there. I'm from the UK, and I've never heard of it, so what do you get there?
Wait, what is it?
Chatterbees.
Chatterby.
Say it, or spell it out. I'm just not getting it.
Chatterbees. Chatterbees?
As a lady chatter.
Chatterbees.
Chatterby. Did they change something in the UK then? You know what? It could be a typo.
Oh wait, Applebee's. Applebee's.
It's very telling that the name is so generic, interchangeable, and instantly forgettable. It's terrible. It's one of the worst places in America. It's casual dining restaurants that sort of purports to be. There must be an analogy for the book business here somewhere. It purports to be very homey and kind of like home cooking, but it's all sort of freeze-dried and reconstituted in the back room.
Like a harvest.
Yeah.
Like if I get pulled into all, in a legal and respectful way, I would.
This is a question about the covers. The covers in the UK, US, and on the Spanish version are completely different. What made you choose a more homely one for the Spanish version?
Well, the truth is, it's not my choice at all. All of the covers are in the capable hands of the publishers themselves, and that's one of the reasons you really trust a regional publisher. They know their market, and they know kind of what the in a way they know what the rest of the shelf looks like. I think it's very interesting to compare, for instance, the Brazilian and Italian covers, which are much more realistic and sort of photo-driven. To my eye, I think they're great covers, but to my eye, they're almost a little old-fashioned, whereas I think the US cover and the UK cover in particular are very kind of like right on the edge, right on the kind of cutting edge of trends in book cover, and I don't know. I think they all kind of speak to those individual markets, and I tell you, it's as much fun for me to get the proofs in my inbox as it is for people to see them on the shelves. It's just a delight to see what different visual minds have done with the book.
One more question, unless anyone has any more. Are you sure? Okay, has to be asked, what is your favorite typeface?
Favorite typeface. I should have a real strong favorite. I write in a typeface called Minion, which is a typeface that many books are set in, and it's just beautiful. It's kind of perfect. But what's my favorite typeface? Gosh, that's a good question. I'll punch the question forward and say that I love the idea of fan fiction, right? People write these stories about Star Trek or Lord of the Rings or the Avengers or whatever else. There are certain class of fictional worlds that are so engrossing that people feel they want to kind of create part of it themselves. They want to co-create it. So they write stories, they dress up, and sometimes they even create artifacts. And so, we'll see where this goes. But imagine that one day, some fan typographer gets so engrossed in Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore that he decides to make a typeface himself. And that, I pledge, that is the typeface.
Kind of speaking on the subject of fan fiction, there's something we wanted to show you. So if you just stay posted.
Is that what I think it is? Let me see. Fantastic. That makes that. No exaggeration. That makes my day.
With the technical issues, is there still something you wanted to do?
I promise it'll be very, very short. Hold on, let me pick up my edition. Okay. Now, I know that some people in the room have read the book, or read part of it. best to read for 3 reasons. One is it's quite short, so it doesn't put anyone to sleep. Another is it's very San Francisco, kind of sets the scene in San Francisco, which is neat because I'm talking to you from San Francisco here. And 3, I think it sells the book pretty well. I think it makes you curious about the rest. So, you know, listen closely, and if it catches your attention, I'm sure there's a stack of books to buy there in the store. So our protagonist, our narrator, his name's Clay Jannon, and he's unemployed. He has been for some time. He's walking the city, kind of thinking about places to work, looking at help wanted ads he's printed out off the internet. San Francisco is a good place for walks if your legs are strong. The city is a tiny square punctuated by steep hills and bounded on 3 sides by water. And as a result, there are surprise vistas everywhere. You'll be walking along, minding your own business with a fistful of help wanted printouts, and suddenly the ground will fall away, and you'll see straight down to the bay with the buildings lit up orange and pink. San Francisco's architectural style didn't really make inroads anywhere else in the country, and even when you live here and you're used to it, it lends the vistas a strangeness. All the tall, narrow houses, the windows like eyes and teeth, the wedding cake filigree. And looming behind it all, if you're facing the right direction, you'll see the rusty ghost of the Golden Gate Bridge. So I had followed one strange vista down a line of steep, stair-step sidewalks, and then walked along the water, taking the very long way home. I had followed the old line of piers, carefully skirting the raucous chowder of Fisherman's Wharf, and watched seafood restaurants fade into nautical engineering firms, and then social media startups. Finally, when my stomach rumbled, signaling its readiness for lunch, I had turned back in toward the city. Whenever I walked the streets of San Francisco, I'd watch for help wanted signs in windows, which is not something you really do, right? I should probably be more suspicious of those. Legitimate employers tend to use Craigslist. Sure enough, the 24-hour bookstore did not have the look of a legitimate employer. A sign in the window said, "Help wanted, late shift, specific requirements, good benefits." Now, I was pretty sure a 24-hour bookstore was a euphemism for something. It was on Broadway in a euphemistic part of town. My help wanted hike had taken me far from home. The place next door was called Booties, and it had a sign with neon legs that crossed and uncrossed. I pushed the bookstore's glass door. It made a bell tinkle brightly up above, and I stepped slowly through. I did not realize at the time what an important threshold I had just crossed. That's it.